today we're going to be practicing something that we've been practicing, but we've been practicing it with variables. So we haven't been doing any calculations. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit more involved because there's some calculations. Okay, so first I want to show you how I would have written this if this was a variable, and then I'm going to show you how I write it when it's a number. So right now these are all exponential form, exponential. Well, I want to turn them into radical form. So I want to figure out what root of 8 am I taking? Well, I am taking the cubed root of 8 and I'm raising it to the second power. Remember, kind of go around the world. This is the root you take. This is the power you raise it to. So this is how I would have written it when it was just a variable. But when it's a letter, I like to do it a little, when it's a number, I like to do it just a little differently. I like to write it like this. The cubed root of 8, all raised to the second power. The difference between the two is mathematically, if I was to do this problem first, I would have to do 8 squared first and then take the cubed root of that, which because these are smaller numbers, that's not that big of a deal. With the way I wrote it this way, I take the cubed root of 8 first and to then take that answer and square it. So a lot of times it's easier to do it this way mentally than it is this way. So when I have numbers, I like to use the parentheses. If I just have letters, like if it would have just been x to the 2/3, then I would have just written cubed root of x raised to the second and called it a day. No parentheses. But when I do numbers, I like to have parentheses. Okay, so first I want to do cubed root of 8. So I'm trying to figure out what times what times what makes an 8. 2. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So the cubed root of 8 is 2, and then I want to raise that to the second power. And what's 2 to the second power? 4. And that's my answer, and I'm done. Okay, let's look at this next one. This is wanting me to take the what root of 9, the square root of 9, and raise it to the 5th. So I'm going to use parentheses this time because this is a number. All right, so first I want to take the square root of 9. What's the square root of 9? What times what makes 9? 3. The square root of 9 is 3, and then I want to raise 3 to the 5th power. Well, 3 to the 5th power, remember that means 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So this is a little bit heavier calculations here. So I'm going to go 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is another 9. 9 times 9 is 81. So now I want to take 81 times 3. So 81 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 8 times 3 is 24. So it's 243. And of course, there's other ways that you could have done this, but I'm just going through what I think is kind of easy. All right, number 3. This is telling you to take the 4th root of 81 and raise it to the 3rd power. So 4th root of 81, we're trying to figure out what times what times what times what. 4 times would make 81. Now that might be kind of hard for some of you, so I want to show you a trick with the 4th root. With 4th roots, you take the square root twice. What's the square root of 81? 9. And then what's the square root of 9? 3. So the answer is 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, 4 times, makes 81. So the 4th root of 81 is 3, and then I still need to raise it to the 3rd power. So 3 to the 3rd power, remember that's 3 times 3 times 3, and what is that? 27. And that's my answer. Okay, let's look at number 4. Number 4 is asking me to take the what root of 32? It's asking me to take the 5th root of 32 and raise it to the 1st power. Well, I don't need to raise it to the 1st power because that doesn't do anything. So let's just figure out the 5th root of 32. What times what times what times what times what? 5 times could make 32. Well, let's see. If I try 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 5 times, that's 243. That's way too big. Let's go smaller. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. There it is. So if I multiply 5 2's together, I get 32. So because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 5 times makes 32, the answer to this problem is 2. All right, this one I actually threw in a negative. So this one's a little bit different. So I want you to take the what root of negative 27? I want you to take the cubed root of negative 27 and raise it to the 5th power. All right, so cubed root of negative 27. What can I multiply together 3 times and get negative 27? Well, 3 times 3 times 3 is a positive 27. So negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 makes a negative 27. So the cubed root of negative 27 is negative 3. And then I want to raise that to the 5th power. So I want to take negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Okay, and I already actually did this up above, but this time I'm going to use my calculator. So negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 makes a negative 243. And that's my answer. Okay, this next one, it's telling me to take the what root of 16? It's telling me to take the square root of 16. So if you need to put a 2 here, go ahead. And then I want to raise it to the 1st power. But raising something to the 1st power doesn't do anything. So what's the square root of 16? 4. Because 4 times 4 is 16. And that's our answer. Now, a lot of times people will see this and they're thinking that it says take half of 16, which is 8. But it's not. The denominator is the root you take. So it's the square root of 16 raised to the 1st. And if you want to write raised to the 1st power, you can. But the square root of 16 is 4, and 4 to the 1st power is still just a 4. All right, let's look at number 7. So I'm taking the what root of negative 64? I'm taking the cubed root of negative 64, and I'm raising it to the 2nd power. Remember, around the world. This is the root, this is the power. All right, what's the cubed root of negative 64? What times what times what 3 times would make a negative 64? And if you have to play with your calculator, 5 times 5 times 5, no, that's too big because we want a negative 64. 125 is too big. If I tried 4 times 4 times 4, that's a positive 64, but I want a negative 64, so let's try negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. Bing, 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 bing. There it is. So because negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 makes negative 64, then the cubed root of negative 64 is negative 4. And then I want to raise that to the 2nd power. And what's negative 4 times negative 4? 16. And that's my answer. Okay, number 8. This is telling me to take the what root of 16? The 4th root of 16. And raise it to the 1st power. But raising anything to the 1st power doesn't do anything. So remember, I taught you a trick earlier. If you ever want to do 4th root, just take the square root twice. What's the square root of 16? 4. And then what's the square root of 4? 2. So the answer is 2. And that's because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 4 times, makes 16. But a little trick is, if you ever see 4th root, just take the square root twice. The square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2. All right, and then looking at this one. What root do I want to take of the 25? I want to take the square root of 25. And if you want to put a 2 here, you can, but it's understood to be there. And I want to raise it to the power of 3. So what's the square root of 25? 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. And then I want to raise that to the 3rd power. And what is 5 times 5 times 5? 125. And that's my answer. Okay, so what I want you to do for me is I want you to try number 10, number 11, and number 12. So you can, pull this up as a PDF and you can figure out these with Kami or DocHub. You can just work the problems on a separate piece of paper. It's up to you. But once you're done with 10, 11, and 12, I want you to take a picture of your work or a screenshot of your work or however it is you're doing it. Take a picture and post to Canvas. Okay, so do number 10, do number 11, and do number 12. Take a picture of your work and post to Canvas. And that's all for today. Smiley face.